Hi guys, welcome to Twin Peaks Twin Perspective. I'm Joe,
James,
and tonight we're going to be reviewing and recapping
giving our perspective to
Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 18, the finale, the series finale. What is your name? Full spoilers on everything Twin Peaks. I would ask you what you thought of Part 18, but instead I'm going to ask you what is your rating for Part 18? What is your name?
2. I'm just kidding. I give this one it's as an episode, as what it is. We're about to talk about what it was, what it is. It's an 8 of 10. It's a well done episode. Very strange, very different, but episode 8 was very different. And in the context of the storyline, Steven and Beverly and everything else, episode 8 had nothing to do with the series. And it was a masterpiece. So, and I've watched it 4 times. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I'll tell you about why it's not better, as we go.
I give it an 8 out of 10. That's my rating. Borderline 7. It was a really good hour of David Lynch, but it didn't fit into The Return. And as far removed as The Return is from original Twin Peaks, Part 18 was even further removed than that.
Further removed than Part 8.
It seemed like Part 17 was the ending of The Return, and Part 18 was the beginning of something, a whole other story. So I'm expecting 2 to 6 more hours from Showtime and David Lynch. I think they have some ideas that they're kicking around. It seems like it opens up the door to a whole other story.
It made me think, okay, we had Dougie Jones for most of the season, but what if we had Real Cooper? This would have been the kind of stuff he would have been doing all season long, and it would have been
instead of fan servicing him and Twin Peaks eating,
and
he still wouldn't have done it.
Giving us Twin Peaks, I mean, I don't see that. It would have been a lot of Coop bouncing around doing the Major Briggs thing. 25 different locations. He left fingerprints, or 17 different locations. But we're going to get into this Twilight Zone of an episode.
Sort of.
And remind everyone, you said last part 17, that after Evil Coop was defeated
and Bob was destroyed, it should have been party time, Twin Peaks style. And Cooper should have been enjoying coffee with everyone there.
Pie at the diner.
There was no reason to run off and do anything.
You had all the time in the world.
The only thing left to do is to find Laura, and she died 25 years ago. There's time for fan servicing at this point.
Yeah, that clock to beat was Evil Coop and getting there and everything and being where he needed to be at that moment.
Yeah, the series ended in part 17, for sure.
The clock has stopped now.
Anything else that was left open involved characters in Twin Peaks. And this must have been too daunting of an idea for David Lynch to go a full hour with Real Coop in Twin Peaks and solving the problems of the people in the town. Like whether Becky's alive or not, or whether Bobby and Shelley get back together again, or what about Red? Who's going to stop Red?
Maybe this is all why he wants to go back and fix Laura, because he thinks it'll better everyone. I don't know what it betters. But from that point on, the superimposed phase, that's when it's like all of this now becomes the dream of the dreamer. And reality ceases to kind of exist. And boy, does it continue in this episode.
Yeah. Okay, we start off in the Black Lodge, and Mr. C's sitting in the chair, The rings brought him to the Black Lodge, and he's on fire. His eyes are white instead of black, which is like that doppelganger look in the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
And he's burning up.
Burning for your sins.
Then we hear Mike's voice, and he says, electricity. And he takes the Dougie seed and puts it on the chair with Cooper hair. And the Dougie seed bounces around on the hair until it sucks it all up. And then it grows bigger. And then it gets really big until it forms Dougie. And I was wondering what suit he'd be wearing.
Yeah.
But he was wearing Coop's black suit. And he said, "Where am I?"
Coop's haircut.
Mm-hmm. And he was whooshed from that spot to right in front of the red door in Lancelot Court.
Nice bus stop.
He knocks on the door. Janie E. answers the door. "Hold on, I'm coming." She answers the door. "Dougie!" She gives him a hug.
Dad.
Here comes Sonny Jim. "Dad, Dad." They hug. And Dougie says, "Home." And that was all they gave us, and that was all they needed to give us, because that leaves so many questions open. How smart is he? That single word response, "home," just reminds us of how he was acting before, or how he might have been acting before even that.
Where some of us want the real Coop to be.
So we knew they were getting a Dougie. We could have assumed that. They didn't have to show us this. I'm glad they did. And now we're in the... Oh.
I was just say fan service for the people who like the return.
Okay, so now we're in the woods. And it's a repeat scene from part 17. When Cooper's leading young 17-year-old Laura through the woods. His intention is to bring her home. So he's bringing her to the entrance to the White Lodge.
Obviously, that's home.
I guess the giant birthed her with the gold ball. So, and Coop must know this. He's done his research.
Put her back in the womb, I guess.
And we get the same situation. They get there. We hear the sound from the phonograph. And then Laura disappears. And when the wind starts to whoosh, we hear Laura scream like she did when she was sucked out of the Black Lodge in part 2.
Seems like things are repeating itself.
And then we see a quick pan in the woods, and we realize that damn pan took about 30 seconds in the last part.
Oh man, it was longer than that.
Yeah, it was way too long. Long enough to get a few verses in from Julie.
But it was quick the second time.
And then as soon as this happens, we're not sure where Laura went.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking she became Carrie Page at this point, but who knows?
Again, yeah, same.
But at this point, all of a sudden, Coop is whisked into the Red Room. And he's sitting there across from Mike. And we've seen this in part 1 or 2. And Mike says, "Is it future or is it past?" And I think when this happened before, Laura walked in. But this time, Coop looks at the chair. The Mike disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And Coop looks at the other chair and no one's there.
So
this was supposed to be the encounter with Laura, and then Laura walks to him, talks, whispers the whisper, then gets sucked out, and then Mike leads him out the room. I think that's how it went down. But this time, no one's there.
Seems to indicate he succeeded in
saving
her.
So then he looks over to the curtain, and Mike's there, and Mike goes. And we saw that before, too. And as soon as Coop follows him, before they even exited that hallway, I said, he's bringing him to the tree with the bubble gum. The evolution of the arm. Because we've seen this before, and sure enough, leads him to him. And the evolution of the arm says, "I am the arm, and I
God. Okay.
But then it says something different. Before it said, "Do you remember your doppelganger?" Right?
When it zooms in on his face, which was the
253.
superimposed face we saw in 17.
253 time and time again. Do you remember your doppelganger? Something like that. Right. This time it repeats what Audrey said. And what story is that, Charlie?
What story is that, Joe?
Is it the story of the little girl who lived down the lane? Is it?
And Audrey said it just like that, too, huh? Is it?
And then the evolution of the arm tells Coop this, and all of a sudden, red curtains, whoosh, and Coop's sitting across from Mike again. No, Laura's there this time, and whispering in his ear. That's what happens. He gets sucked back to that moment again, except Laura's actually there whispering in his ear. And then Laura gets sucked out. And gets sucked out again.
So she was there. Something happened. When he brought it up, Cooper thought about her, and all of a sudden she was there again.
It has something to do with the story, I guess.
It's the story. Is this the story about her?
Is this reality, or is this Cooper's dream? Or is Cooper's dream reality?
That's what I think. He brought her back into existence, like that which he had just stopped, I guess. He made it happen again.
Yeah.
God digging around with stuff. This is how we got platypuses, people.
Yeah, because he had just done this and she wasn't there, and all of a sudden, the question of the story of the girl down the lane, and all of a sudden, boom, he's there. She's whispering in his ear. She gets sucked up again. He leaves.
Yeah.
The last time he had left, he had entered a room where Leland was at, and Leland said, "Find Laura." And this time, Coop enters the room, but from the other way. And Leland's sitting there, and same thing. "Find Laura." Greatest actor in my mind of all time, Ray Wise, gets to sit in a chair and say "Find Laura" twice.
He must have been really busy. The actor.
Yeah, right, I guess. Man, if I could just put him for just 15 minutes, please.
He can't underutilize that kind of talent. But he did.
So then Cooper exits the room from the opposite direction of the last time we saw this. And I knew as soon as he got in that hallway, this is the exit to the Glastonbury. Because what happened the last time was Coop got to the end and he couldn't exit. There was some electrical force that was keeping him out. He couldn't exit the curtain. He ended up going back the other way. This time, when he was coming down the hall, he was doing some hand twists. And I think he did about 8 of them as he walked down the hall. I counted them, 8. And then he walked through the curtains and he exited where Glastonbury Grove is. He finally exited the lodge for the first time, perhaps, in this reality.
And what year is it?
And standing there is Diane. So I guess when he told her in some other reality, "I'll meet you in the curtain call," that meant Glastonbury, right? Somehow she knew to meet him there.
That had to be the meeting, which would indicate the same timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which
Makes
doesn't
no
make
sense.
So I hate time jumping movies because of the inconsistencies that could arise and how goofy it is, the notion to think that you can actually go back in time. I just think it's stupid. I don't think it's possible. I don't care what Einstein said. So,
Maybe his intention was to save Laura and then come back out at this time to present day and see how everything has changed. He wanted to come back and some things will change. I hope to see you all again. And that was his intention, was to come out here, but he didn't succeed.
I don't know, because he intentionally makes a move to enter into some other timeline, and then within that timeline, he gets transferred to another timeline. So wherever he wanted to exit at, it's not where he ended up, for sure. Yeah.
Now, I always thought it was kind of the same timeline as the one he altered when he went back to try and save Laura.
Okay. Right.
So it would be the same one that he's coming out of to meet Diane.
Okay. And in that timeline, he saved Laura. Right. That's what
Right,
you're
that's
saying.
what his intention was. I don't think it worked out.
And then the very next thing they do is go to another spot where they say they're going to cross over. And
From Glastonbury Grove.
I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Twilight Zone.
It's 3 different freaking timelines, and from the time he exits till the time this show ends, for sure. Okay, so we're getting carried away already with the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Diane's standing there, and Diane asks, "Is it you, Cooper?" And he says, "Yes." And she says, "Is it really you?" And then he does the same thing. "Is it you, Diane?" She says, "Yes." "Is it really you?" All these parallels, all these multiples.
You never know if he's just doing it to be a parallel or if it means something.
So they kiss, right? And then the red curtains disappear. And the next thing you know, it's daytime. And they're in an old blue car. And they're driving. And they get to a spot where he pulls off the road. And he says almost 430 miles exactly. Which makes me think this is from Glastonbury Grove to this spot, I guess. 430 miles.
Yeah, we were looking for it. Buckhorn, South Dakota doesn't exist, by the way.
So, before they pull over, Diane says, "You sure you want to do this?" And then she says, "You don't know what it's going to be like once we..." It's very suggestive, right?
Very suggestive.
And Cooper's like, "I know. We're at that point now. I can feel it." Brown chicken, brown cow.
Now where it counts, buddy.
Okay, so what he really meant, I guess, was we're at that point now, 430 miles. I can feel it, right? Okay, if there's electrical lines out, he pulls off exactly 430 miles. And before he gets out the car, Diane says, "Just think about it, Cooper." Like, she seems a little worried about this.
I am.
So Coop gets out, he walks out, he starts feeling around in the air, right? You can hear electrical sounds and you can hear birds calling, and I love that. That's just 2 Twin Peaks things, having both those things going on. Then he looks at his watch. He checks his watch while he's standing out there. And then he comes back to the car, he gets in, he says, "This is the place, all right." And then he says, "Kiss me." And she doesn't look like she really wants to, but she does anyway, because he says, "Once we cross, it could all be different." There must be something wrong with what's going on in this timeline to him to want to switch timelines. But anyway.
And I guess it must be noted that when he came out and met Diane, I didn't really care for. It didn't seem like it was Cooper to me. He's been acting different from this point on.
Yes.
From this point to the rest of it, it doesn't feel like Cooper.
Yeah. Really. It doesn't.
And I mean, it's obvious they have that back and forth.
And
are you really you? Are you really you?
And it gets worse and worse.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting nightmarish.
So after they kiss, Diane's on board and says, "Let's go."
So she didn't taste the nastiness in his mouth like the story the Tulpa was saying when she kissed the evil Coop.
But the Tulpa could have been exaggerating the situation, because that's what this feels like. She seems like she's hesitant to go there.
But she says, "Okay,
but then
I
she
guess."
Lets him manipulate her anyway.
No, it didn't taste right.
It's true. And it's all sexual to me at this point. In this part of the return, it ceased to be Twin Peaks. It ceased to be the return. And it began to be Inland Empire mixed with Lost Highway. And I love Lost Highway. So I'm able to give this episode an 8 out of 10 because I'm going to treat it as a separate entity from what we've been watching, which I had to do to like it because the inner Twin Peaks fan in me that wanted all the nostalgia was pissed.
No, as this thing goes on, it just start looking at your watch, and it's like
We're not going to find
this
out
is
about Audrey.
definitely.
We're not going to find out about Bobby. We're not going to find out about Nadine. We're not going to find out about nobody.
It became a Lynchian thing.
Except for Cooper's inner identity crisis, personal struggle. Like he went into the Black Lodge and the Black Lodge consumed him. And when he came out, he had all that essence. Mr. C had 25 years to build up. And Coop's just not Coop anymore. Coop is more human. And he's getting tempted. It almost seems like he's initiating all of it.
And you could go down the list of stuff that Catholics, from lust, which we're about to get into. I mean, vanity to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking you could save Laura. Gluttony, I'm sure we'll find all of them. Sloth. We'll find them all. Somebody could get on that. We'll find them all. But Coop immediately delves into the pleasures.
So in this old blue car, they start to creep up to this spot where the electrical buzzing is happening. Zzz, and they're not even on the road. They're on the side of the road. And they're creeping up real slow. And all of a sudden they get to the spot. And there's flashes. And Coop and Diane are sitting perfectly still.
Yeah.
And then, bam, they're on the highway. It's nighttime. And they're flying. It's almost like they came out of hyperspace. And then they slow down to a nice pace where they're obviously driving. It's the middle of the night. And neither one of them react at all to what's happened. They don't even share a word.
No signpost. I have no idea where the hell we're at.
They pull into this seedy-looking hotel. And I couldn't see the name of the hotel. It's pretty blurry. You guys might have seen an image of it by now.
Pretty seedy.
It is seedy looking.
Yeah, we got one here. It's called the A-Bar Motel. And you only there for one thing.
They park. Cooper gets out. He goes in to pay. Diane's sitting there. She looks over and she sees herself standing there. And she doesn't really react.
Yeah. And it's too hard to tell whether it was a carbon copy or dark eyes like Evil Coop, maybe doppelganger or a Tulpa.
Right, we don't know.
Or the real Diane.
Right. And if this Diane's been Naito for the last 21 years, she don't recognize what she's supposed to look like. She thinks it's just another chick standing out there. Don't show Diane a mirror, whatever you do.
Yeah, I know she was red hair.
At this point, I have no idea where we're at because he exited the Black Lodge.
Lynch's Twilight Zone continues.
He exited the Black Lodge. They went to a certain spot. They chose to cross over, and now they're in another spot.
And it could be a potential Diane as well, not a doppelganger or a Tulpa. Diane in that area that they just crossed over into, which means there'd be another Coop running around too.
I thought she was Linda at this point, but I don't think so. Because this hotel looks kind of seedy, and we see the face of the hotel. And then the next day it's a different hotel. But so they go into the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, room number 7. And Diane turns on the light, and Cooper says, "Turn off the light."
He should have said, when she turned it back off, he should have said, "Now it's dark." Consider it a lost cause, but that would have been fan service.
Then Diane says, "What do we do now?" And he says, "You come over here to me."
This doesn't sound like Cooper at all.
It sounds like, what part are we supposed to play now? What part are we reenacting now? And he's like, "Well, you're supposed to come over here to me."
This is my dream. Now I'm dreaming of you.
Maybe she's a virgin. She's like 50.
Whoa.
She walks over to him.
Does she have recollections of the evil Coop experience, that rape that she talked about?
This feels like the rape scenario being played out right in front of us. That's what it felt like to me.
Or like good Coop saying, I know bad Coop banged you, but me and you gotta get it on to make things right or something.
See, you're connecting the timelines. See, I have no idea where we're at this
That's
point.
true.
It's like, okay, well, this is the Tulpa Diane, or is this the real Diane? She knows what to do next. She's been sleeping with a herd of fucking men, right? You know, I mean, I can't connect the timelines, and this isn't Cooper either. It's a fucked up guy like, yeah, you're supposed to come over here to me.
Yeah.
And then when he said Diane, he says that to her right before they start making love.
It's 4:30 a.m.
Diane.
It's 2:53 a.m.
It was almost like they were role playing, and he was calling her Diane because she was pretending to be Diane. It's weird. It felt weird, the whole thing. Then My Prayer kicks in by the Platters, which was insanely effective in part 8. Until the This Is the Water and This Is the Well interrupted the programming. And I wish This Is the Water and This Is the Well would have interrupted this programming. Because it was 3.5 minutes of painful, because it's set up to be a rape, in my opinion, to begin with. An uncomfortable situation for Diane from the very beginning, before they even crossed through this 4:30 threshold.
For us as well, because we were made to visualize it in detail.
The way that Cooper's looking at her during the act is so unlike Cooper. It felt like it was Mr. C. I was looking to see if it had the mullet thing going on in the background. You know, so,
but if they're role playing, then he's playing the role of Mr. C.
God only knows what's happening here. It felt like Lost Highway, especially when they showed that up angle from above and Laura Dern was looking up right at it and she was crying. It reminded me of Patricia Arquette getting screwed in the butt in the porno during Lost Highway. I mean, it's so sinister, and she was crying about it, and when she was looking at him, he was staring at her, and she was covering up his face and his eyes with her hands, and she was almost slapping him at one point, and then just...
And at this point, so I don't want to precursor the note, but trying to make believe he's someone else if you're role playing would be covering the person who it is, his face.
It all had a sinister quality to it. It didn't feel natural, and it should have with Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern.
It felt ritual.
Right. It felt like she was doing something she didn't want to do.
They had to for some reason.
And he was telling her what to do so they could do it. It had to be done. And I think about the seed all the time and DNA. And, you know, like you said, she got the seed and just left, right? The next day, boom, gone.
Oh, yeah.
I got the essence. Now I can make all the Coopers out. I don't know. It's weird. You never know, right?
Yeah, it really is. That's true. She'd just go get a syringe, pull it out, and start making babies.
And or frame them for rape or whatever.
Coop scoop.
So that was 3.5 minutes of painful cinema.
Yeah.
And then
ruins a song from episode 8. You're trying to make connections.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to make connections to both scenes. And there's...
Yeah, for a second I thought, is she the frog moth girl? They're playing my prayer. Anyway, we're going to have a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah, we got thoughts we thought you didn't think of coming up too with some of that.
Yeah, for sure. So the next thing you know, it's morning time in the hotel room, and Cooper's laying there alone in bed. And Mulholland Drive came to my mind. He turns around and says, Diane. And we get a pan of the very small room, and there is no Diane in sight. And Coop looks over, sees a note, picks up the note, and begins to read it. And it says, Dear Richard, when you read this, I'll be gone. Please don't try to find me. I don't recognize you anymore. Whatever it was we had together is over.
I've heard those words before.
Linda Sign Linda to Richard. And Cooper recognizes this immediately as weird. He's Richard? I'm not Richard, I'm Cooper. Linda? I was just calling for Diane. So he doesn't understand the identity switch here. And neither do we. And neither do you.
If the fireman told him, remember 4:30, Richard and Linda, and if that would have registered, his face would have looked different. The actor known as Kyle MacLachlan that's going to get a award for his performance wouldn't have purposely looked like he was confused, because he was confused,
Right.
indicating that's not, he didn't remember, or he doesn't, or
So has he been placed in the body of a Richard with all the memories of a Cooper?
as soon as they crossed that 4:30, he became Richard, she became Linda. They
And-
role played FBI
But
scenario.
It could have been when they crossed at 4:30, but it could have also been sometime that morning, because when he leaves the hotel, it's a different hotel.
Yeah,
And he has a car waiting for him across the street, and they were parked in a old blue car right next to the room.
this definitely looks like an FBI
This
car.
is an FBI car parked all the way across the damn road, or parking lot. So I thought maybe at that point they're Richard and Linda. Time seemed to switch after they had sex. So they went from one timeline to the 4:30 mark, entered another timeline. They got a hotel, and the next day he's in a whole other timeline. At some point it switched. It must have been because of the lovemaking. Sam and Tracy bringing Judy into the picture.
Man,
Lots of thoughts to think about.
yeah, that's. At this point, we're realizing, okay, stuff in Twin Peaks is probably not going to get touched on here because they're starting to get lengthy in the episode, and it's like we're definitely doing something completely different.
Yeah. We watched him get in the car, back up, drive to the exit of the parking lot, then wait for cars, and then pull onto the road. We watched the whole thing happen. It's like, what's going on here? This is the only thing happening. I have no idea where Cooper's going. Is he going to go look for Diane?
Mm-hmm.
He's just driving, and he's looking around, like he's looking for his next clue to register what he's supposed to do next. I don't think he knows where he's going. And then he sees a sign that says Judy's Coffee Shop.
Oh, did we see the Odessa sign before then?
Actually, yeah. We find out at this point he's in Odessa, Texas. He either sees a sign before or after he leaves his coffee shop, but
Which doesn't necessarily mean it was Odessa, the seedy hotel that he showed up at. But very well, when he woke up and left, he could have been in Odessa. I still haven't, because it's a different hotel, different car, different scenario.
yeah, 430 miles from Glastonbury Grove, due east would have put you in Montana, so I don't know what's going on, how he ended up in Texas.
He could have really changed to Texas, and he knew where he was going to begin with, crossing the
It
430.
didn't
But
seem like it. He noticed a sign behind the coffee shop at first, and then it led him to the Judy sign. And then when he pulled in, you could see that big sign you'd recognized before, but the building was right behind that place. I don't know. It just looked like he was looking around, like, what am I supposed to do next? Waiting for something to register. And Judy registered. He pulls in. He goes in, sits down, and when the waitress approaches him, he doesn't recognize this waitress.
Francesca Eastwood.
So he's like, is there another waitress that works here? And she says, yeah, but she's off today. She's been off for the last 3 days.
Like Teresa Banks.
It's just like Teresa Banks. And then
Parallel or points to ponder? We'll never know.
she asked him, would you like some coffee? And he didn't react at all. And that is all I need to know that that ain't the Coop we know and love. This is a complicated individual who could care less whether she's going to pour him that coffee or not. And when he drinks the coffee, he has no reaction at all. She walks over to the other table with 3 cowboys to fill up their coffees, and one of them grabs her and she says, "Stop it." And Cooper says, "Leave her alone."
Now, so okay, maybe it is Cooper.
These 3 cowboys get up, walk over there, and one of them pulls a gun out and says, "Get out of that booth." And Cooper springs into action. He holds the gun down, kicks the guy in the nuts. Oh! The other guy tries to pull a gun. Coop pulls his gun, shoots him in the foot. Pow! He falls to the ground. He points the gun at the other guy. Coop says, "Put your gun on the ground." The guy said, "I don't have a gun." Coop said, "Put your gun on the ground." The guy puts his gun on the ground. He says, "Now sit down." All 3 cowboys are on the ground now. Cooper wakes up, gets up, I wish he'd wake up, gets up, and he walks to where the counter is, where the waitress is at, and he's pointing the gun at everybody. He's not being menacing about it, but he's being careless about it. And he gets where the waitress is at, and he says, "Write down the address." And she says, "What?" And he says, "Write down the address to the waitress, the other waitress." She starts writing. And Cooper asks her where to put the fries, because he picks up the basket of fries out of the grease.
Perfectly crisp.
And then he takes the cowboys' guns and drops them in the grease, which is not a Cooper thing to do. But then he tells the cook there, "You might want to leave, because I don't know how hot this grease is, if it's hot enough to blow up the bullets." So that was a Cooper thing.
He didn't kind of tell the woman standing there, but he told the cook, "You might want to back up." I don't know. There's a fluctuation between good and, like, for 1 second he looks like he's really means well. He's trying to stop these guys hitting on this woman, and then he sounds like evil Coop. Then he does some evil Coop kind of stuff, but then he's mindful enough to be good.
It seems like that's the impression we're supposed to get from this new incarnation of Cooper, that he is split down the middle. He is evil Coop and good Coop.
Yeah.
And all of it's shining now, even the bad parts. And that's what you get for spending 25 years in the Black Lodge. You come out.
Forget you going in there alive. Just walking among the souls of the dead. He should have never crossed that threshold.
That's right. It was foolish and careless, and he got what he deserved because he had demons.
Hawk didn't go. Hawk's like, I don't know this. I don't know nothing.
Coop went in that lodge and being with Caroline, cheating with his partner's wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would want to kill him. I was in Wyndham Earl's shoes for that part of it.
And he had to relive all that. He saw her dead laying there, and he felt the stab that Wyndham gave him, and he was bleeding out, and he had to relive all of that in the Black Lodge because he had demons. And this guy's being a prick now. He really is. I mean, he's like, "You got that address for me?" And the waitress's name is Christy. She said, "Yeah, but I can't believe she wrote the real address down right." He goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm FBI. It's okay." It's like, see, Coop would have said that right out of the get-go. "I'm FBI. I need this address right away." Been nice about it. Left her a tip. Loved the coffee. Something ain't right.
Man, that jumped through 4:30 must have really screwed with his beans. Either that or Diane did the night before. She took some sense out of that boy.
His beans were screwed as soon as he left that lodge. He was weird.
Okay. Gives him the address, and that's the last we see of Francesca Eastwood.
Yep. Coop leaves.
That was the last of the cameos that we were waiting for.
He instinctively finds this address in this strange town he's never been in. For all I know, he grew up in Odessa. He's channeling Sailor Ripley right now, as I think Sailor and Lula may have spent some time in Odessa.
Yep, on their way to Big Fish. It does feel like we're about to get into Wild at Heart territory.
You think?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't get Laura Dern and Kyle. Laura was too young when Blue Velvet was filmed to get her naked at the time. But as soon as she was old enough, I put her in Wild at Heart. But never could get these two together. So we finally got the actors of age. Get to make out 3 times and have a sex scene.
Are you saying Lynch lives vicariously through the sex scenes that he films?
I'm saying I would ask Laura Dern, was that a stunt double? The hands on the breasts, that one little shot? Was it stunt breasts?
I've heard reviewers already comment how great and perky they still are. See, I'm not supposed to say that. That's not the way I feel. I don't comment on women like that.
I actually kind of was looking away the whole time because it was kind of, it was just uncomfortable.
It was a weird
Very fucking uncomfortable. Laura Dern's a trooper, man. She'll do anything.
Okay, so he finds his way to this address. And when he pulls up, he notices an electrical pole that has a number 6 on it.
With a picket fence behind it.
And he saw this in his vision.
It was the only vision of the 6th pole that I didn't recognize, and here we are seeing it.
This pole gets around. We've seen it in Deer Meadow, we've seen it in Twin Peaks, and now we're seeing it in Odessa, Texas.
It was shown to Andy.
It's a really weird, beat-up looking place. Almost looks like there was a trailer there before in one spot that's empty now, and then you pan over to the house, and it's not kept up at all.
Kind of looked like she wanted to start a garden, kind of like the shape of a pool in front, but it's just nothing had been done with it.
So,
all kind of trash in the yard.
So Cooper and some ropes look like they were supposed to be nooses or something.
3 pieces of rope.
So Cooper knocks on the door, and from inside the house we see this woman approach the door, and she says, "Who is it?" And we hear FBI, and she immediately and excitedly opens up the door. And then she says,
"Did you find him?"
Rather quickly, "Did you find him?" And when we see the woman, it's Cheryl Lee in all of her amazing glory.
Looking good and about to rock it.
I mean, looking good and killing it. I love Cheryl Lee. Oh, she's so good.
Can't take it away. That's why it makes an 8.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Cheryl Lee saved this episode by her presence for sure. She says, "Did you find him?" And Cooper says, "Laura?" And she says, "Did you find him?" And Cooper says, "Laura?"
Twice. The duality with Lynch.
The parallels.
And the languishing, which is about to commence.
The twin perspective.
Yeah.
So, she starts to say, "Look, I think you got the wrong house." And he says, "You're not Laura Palmer." She said, "Laura who?" "Look, I'm not whoever you think I am, but I think you gotta go." And he says, "Wait a minute." So he said, your father was Leland?" And she said,
"Okay."
And then Coop said, "And your mother is Sarah?" And she said, "Sarah?"
I swear I heard, "Aunt Sarah?"
Just like Maddie. Oh, it was beautiful. And then she said, "What's going on?" And Cooper said, "It's hard to explain."
But I planted a seed in your head.
But he said, "I think you're a little girl named Laura Palmer, and I want to take you back to your home, to the house where you used to stay." He said, "It's very important." And at this point, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What's this gonna prove? Bringing her back there.
Yeah. Even if it's the woman you saved back when she was 17 and she has no idea who she is now, and she really is Laura Palmer.
Why would you want
why would you want to bring her back there to remember who she was? If she had a destiny, you screwed it up by not letting her fulfill it, which was dying.
She seemed like to be in a rough spot in this life of hers. She said her name is Carrie Page. And she said that stuff was so bad right now. Normally she'd slam the door on a guy like him and say, "Fuck off." But stuff's so bad for her right now that she needs to get out of Dodge. So jumping in a car with an FBI agent and taking a ride sounds like a good idea. Might save her ass.
Might save her ass.
So she tells him to come in so she can make a bag to get stuff packed to go. And he goes in, and there's a dead guy sitting in a chair. His head's been shot. And
Rigor mortis has set in.
and there's blood splatter everywhere. And there's a shotgun or a rifle on the ground, right, pretty close to where
He
he's
looked
at.
pretty bloated too.
He looked bloated.
Been there for a minute.
The flies were buzzing around him. You could hear the flies. And no one speaks about this body. I mean, she's ready to leave. I don't know what happened in this situation. Gave me a Blue Velvet feel for a second there. And then she packs a bag and comes back. She thought maybe it was Washington, D.C. at first. He explains it's Washington State. Then she needs to know if Washington State's in the north. And he says, yeah. She said, well, I got to get a coat. So then she goes and gets a coat. And then, let's go.
And he sees the miniature
White horse over the fireplace. Yep.
with a blue plate behind it, whatever that means.
I mean, a man comes out of the blue like that? I mean, a man comes out of the blue like that?
And other things like a big thing of Kentwood that you would put at a water cooler sitting upright by the fireplace. And they look like plaster, like a bucket of plaster in front of the fireplace.
Pack of toilet paper or paper towels.
You kind of got to look around and just, what am I absorbing here? If you can absorb the horse, then you need to absorb the water in the well, you know. It's like I'm starting to look around trying to figure this out.
That's good.
The body is just never mentioned.
Yeah. And the phone rings before they leave, and no one addresses the phone, and they let it ring out. And she won't talk about her story in Odessa because it's a long story, why she needs to get out of Dodge.
1,400-mile drive.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, and it's a long story. But they got 1,400 miles to go.
So you take the first 700 and tell me your story, and I'll take the second 700 miles,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you my long story.
Now, do we have 6 minutes to devote to all of this conversation? Well, we have 6 minutes to devote to the frickin' car ride.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some tension built, and it's beautifully directed, and there's some shots that I love. But
I mean, we could have told each other our live story before we got out of Texas.
Yeah. They're paranoid, and there's lights at one point behind them, but the lights pass them. There's nothing to worry about. And the only conversation we get is that she talks about Odessa for a second, and she says, I tried to keep a clean house, keep everything organized. It's a long way. In those days, I was too young to know any better. Then she falls asleep again. Then they get to a gas station, and we get to see them exit the gas station, walk all the way to the car, get in the car, pull up until they're about to pull out, wait for cars to pass, and then pull out. It was a beautiful shot, though. It really was. But it was about a minute and a half.
I don't know if we're supposed to talk about, I don't know if this is a sweet thought you didn't think of, but Valero is just a gas station. I know, because in our town we had a Diamond Shamrock, which was Shamrock Oil and Diamond. They got together, Diamond Shamrock, and then all those gas stations turned into Valeros in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and it was actually 2007 when they started making convenience stores.
Right.
And I just feel that's important to mention. It could be
so it's not
a continuity thing, but I mean everything.
It's not earlier than 2007.
At this point, I'm like, okay, well, this is definitely not, you know. It could be 2016, 14, whatever, you know, the new, wherever we were in the original timeline. It could be the same year. I don't know what year he thinks it is.
So they finally get to Twin Peaks. And we know because they cross a familiar bridge and then they pass a familiar diner. And some
Looks a
people
lot like it did back in the day.
Some people say there's no double R to go written on the side of the double R diner. which would suggest it's further back in the past than what the return has been.
Possibly, yeah.
There's no to go. Or in this land of no Laura death, they've never delivered food. They never got the double R to go going.
No Meals on Wheels without Laura?
So Coop's like, does any of this look familiar to you? And she says no. And then they pull up to the house, the Palmer house. Does that house look familiar to you? No. Then they get up. Coop takes her hand. They get out of the car. Coop takes her hand. They do the slow approach to the door. They knock on the door. They knock again.
Slow approach to answer the door.
A woman answers. It's late at night. A woman answers. It's not Sarah Palmer. Dale Cooper says, I'm FBI. Is Sarah Palmer here? She says, no one by that name lives here. He says, do you know a Sarah Palmer? She said, no. He's like, well, do you own this house or do you rent it? She says, we own the house. So who did you buy the house from? So then she asks her husband, who's out of scene. We bought the house from a Mrs. Chalfont. And then before, when he had asked Cheryl Lee, what's your name? She said, Alice Page. No, is it Alice? No.
Carrie Page.
Carrie Page, I'm sorry. And then he asked this woman, what is your name?
We get our title.
And she says, Alice Tremont. Dun dun dun. So apparently a Tremont bought a house from a Chalfont. The Palmer house.
I knew they had woodsmen running around this place. Even when it was just Sarah, I knew there was some kind of porthole there. And my fan fiction, which I will be releasing because I know you guys are going to want to see. Yeah. It just feels like they've always been there.
Right.
Some kind of connection. Right? It could have been Sarah Palmer, who said her name was Chalfont, that sold the house to the Tremont because she was possessed. But there was no Laura. But so, yeah, so she.
And this Tremont could be Sarah Palmer, and all we're seeing is the Tremont.
Yeah.
I'm Alice Tremont. I don't know no Sarah Palmer. And then when they leave, Sarah's the one sitting in the house. We have no idea.
Yeah, Donna must have been gifted. But this Cooper ain't.
So then Cooper says, okay, I'm sorry to bother you so late. Thank you. Cooper and Laura, I'm sorry, Carrie. Cooper and Carrie Page walk away from the house. They start to cross the street. Cooper turns back to look at the house, and then Carrie stops and looks at the house. She's looking at Cooper. And then Cooper slouches over and takes a few steps and puts his hand out like this. And then says, what year is it?
It reminded me of him walking down the thing doing his little twisty.
Like he was recalling, did I do enough?
Did I turn the knob to 19, wherever hell he thought he was? Or
2015.
whatever the hell he's doing at this point.
But he does ask, what year is it? And then we see Carrie Page. And at first I'm thinking, she just realized this guy's insane.
Yeah, I'm with a madman.
But she's standing there, and then we see the Palmer house, and then we see her again, and we hear Sarah's voice yell, Laura! And then Carrie Page screams.
I got goosebumps.
And she screams like Laura would scream. She screamed like she just remembered everything that happened to her in her past.
Coop looks over. He's freaking a little bit.
Is he?
But he does. Well, when she starts screaming, you see a cut to him where he just looks over at her. But well, then what was your point? Well, you were bringing her there. She's recollecting. Well, now that she's remembered, what is the point? Because what happens? She starts screaming, and
Best I got,
the house.
he took her from 17 years old Laura, dropped her off at Carrie Page. She lived the rest of her life as Carrie Page, and then he just flooded her back with all the memories of getting abused for 5 years.
The point being,
I don't know, to bring Judy out. The FBI's whole point's to bring Judy out.
this house flickered into non-existence.
That's what it seemed like. As soon as Carrie screamed and remembered everything, everything went black. The lights, electrical, and it's all black. Maybe that's where her story ended.
The little girl that lived down the lane.
Could be Laura.
You happy now, Coop? You wrapped it up satisfactorily?
This is the end of the episode and the end of the series.
And we do see Laura
Whispering to Coop in the lodge. Laura whispering to Coop in the lodge as the credits roll for the final time. Shortest credits ever.
What do you think she's telling him this time?
Ask for more money. I liked what you thought she said. I'm the shit.
Tag, you're it. Ah, fuck, gotta go find her again.
So this is it. Part 18 wasn't the series finale, in my opinion. It was prologue to something that's to come. Whether it deals with Twin Peaks the town ever again or not, I have no idea. They're just going to go search town records looking for a Sarah Palmer, where she went to next. Go find her. She's probably living in Buckhorn or Las Vegas.
I got some thoughts we thought you didn't think of. Just maybe, you know, you never heard me say I can't wait or I hope they have a season 4. Just we differ on that. I didn't want to. Everything I learned this season, I didn't want to watch another season to learn the answers to. I don't really care about Steven or Red enough.
Not Becky?
Not even, really. You know, so that we got to see them all, and there's some stuff there, and if it gets written by Mark Frost and David Lynch and they want to continue it, and then that would be nice. The fan service just was non-existent in the last 2 episodes. I say non-existent, virtually non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Hawk and Bobby making cameos at the end. Lynch and Albert making cameos at the end. Just everything we thought we might have.
You want to give him some of that for a minute?
Oh yeah, let me grab all this stuff. I don't want to give you too much of this stuff. This is all thoughts we thought you didn't think of. But I think everybody's going to be thinking of everything. One thing that gets me, though, is Cooper wanted to go to Briggs's location where those coordinates were, and they tricked him. They tricked him into... They put him right back where he was, or right where he needed to be, for them to complete the plan that Freddie was involved with. So we had everything happen without really needing Cooper, except for the ring. Except for Cooper showing up just in time to put the ring on Evil Coop. Bob got defeated. Maybe Cooper was supposed to be there to say, "This is your destiny, Freddie." But Freddie fulfilled it. Evil Coop's gone. Bob's gone. No need to continue doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially finding Laura. Seems to me like as though you've got eternity to do that.
It's just... all of this is going to be saved for our next. It just... the one other thing besides... it's like the order was balanced at this point.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And the whole point of the firemen was to put out the fires, like keeping this thing yin yang, or the 8, everything. And when he tried to save Laura, he unbalanced. Sometimes I believe things that might have been helping him in the lodge at that point will now be against him. It seemed that way in the first 2 seasons, that maybe the mic wasn't helpful, or the arm wasn't And then they were helpful in season 3 because he needed to balance everything out, and he tried to unbalance the balance.
As if Cooper was thinking with his prick, and he was being selfish, and yeah, he chose a dark path at that point, and it was
Playing God, so
yeah,
to speak.
yeah, you're serving yourself, and could be.
I wish the log lady would have popped up in one of those visits. He did go back. We knew he was going to go back. He would end up back in the lodge. He probably never left. He's still sitting there dreaming up all this stuff. Who do I want to bang next? Laura. Okay, let's dream about a time where I could hook up with her.
We're gonna have to see if they decide to do something else. Mark Frost book. The final dossier comes out on October 31st, Halloween, and I'm not sure how much that's going to answer, because we thought The Secret History of Twin Peaks was going to answer a lot of questions from season 2, and it didn't.
It was unfortunate too, because we're like, I hope we don't find out a bunch of stuff in the book, and we didn't.
Right.
We didn't find out.
We wanted
series.
to see it in the series.
Now we're like, I hope they explain all the stuff that they didn't in the series in this book. So yeah, you're gonna get it written out for you. Maybe how Annie's doing. I think he indicated that we're gonna find out what happened to Audrey in this thing. That's being Mark Frost. I don't know. That's something I heard. I didn't see it myself.
We'll see.
But the final dossiers on Halloween.
Interesting to see if Laura Palmer ever died in this book.
Yeah, because she's dead in The Secret History. That actually happened in The Secret History, Mark Frost's version. But we're going to find out. They said it was a financial success. I don't think, they're going to find out until they lose all their subscriptions. Showtime, that is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the sales of the final dossier will have a say-so in whether or not they want to do a season or will do a season 4. I think if they're planning on it, they've already started writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Lynch has already done something, or at least thought about it.
Right. They'd have to come to the table with something. Showtime said the door's open for David Lynch if he wants to do it. He said that, and they said there's no indication from Lynch that he does want to do anything else right now. But I've heard Lynch say that TV's what he wants to focus on if he's going to create the medium. It's not going to be a feature film. He'll paint, he'll make his furniture, and whatever he's inspired to do, he'll do. But if he makes film, it's going to be long-form television. It's the only medium to go. And they had a rough time of it with Showtime at first, but they managed to pull it off. And I think if it's a critical success to the point where there's some awards next year for them.
Think it'll be that long before they make an announcement?
I don't know.
I'm thinking, wait for the book and then see the sales and then would get an announcement, but it almost seems like too far away. It feels like it needs to be made while the hype is hype, but then again...
They might think the hype's going to come back for award season.
They might say, oh, everyone freaking hated it. Let's wait a while until this calms down and remind everyone when the award season come out that, hey, it was a success.
Before the last 2 episodes aired, Showtime announced that they were going to keep the return on their streaming services and on demand for longer than they had initially said. It was supposed to go away at the end of September.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer they're keeping it now.
I've got like 3 friends. One's at 13, one's at 16, and one's like at 15. And it's like, I got to come over here before the end of the month. But now, could pace it out a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's on 12 right now, so he's hoping that it stays available for a while so he can watch it. But yeah, I think the reason why they kept it for longer was to try to keep Twin Peaks fans subscribed for another couple of months. I would think within the next 2 months you'd have to announce if you're going to do something else, if you plan on keeping these new subscribers. They had record subscribers when they had premiered Twin Peaks.
Everyone I know has already gotten rid of it.
Not us. We
They
still
probably
have
recorded it.
We still
But
have
we had it before. We do plan on getting rid of it.
if they don't announce a new season, once the Blu-ray becomes available of the series, I'm getting rid of Showtime.
Yeah.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's available by the end of the year.
We have to keep Stars. Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yep. I'm not getting rid of Stars because Ash vs. Evil Dead.
No, HBO comes to mind.
No. Game of Thrones is over.
But we got HBO.
My wife gets that right before Game of Thrones starts, and as soon as it's over, she gets rid of it.
It's done all around the world.
The only one
Just
I
don't
keep
do it is Netflix.
The only one I keep is Netflix. That's the only one I keep year round because they have the best programming, in my opinion. Consistent.
We're not saying somebody else needs to buy Twin Peaks, but there always seems to be something going on with Lynch. So you just never know.
I think Netflix would be a great place. Lynch doesn't want to put it all out at one time, which is what Netflix does.
Right, and it's it is important to digest Lynch in not only in small doses, but you can't eat a real big piece without savoring it. And it was such an interesting episode, part 18, the way to end it off. It really felt like 17 was the end, and 18 was just, this is what it could have been if we didn't have Dougie Coop. We could have had Coop as Richard. But it does open up a lot of different ideas of where the story could go, or what you could do with Coop besides just dicking around Twin Peaks, because I didn't think he could play around in Twin Peaks for 18 hours. It'd be like, after about 6 hours, he'd be done. He showed up for what, 30 minutes?
Well, for me, the love of Twin Peaks is the strongest when you're talking about the characters and the way the characters are written.
Yeah.
So you put me in their life in that town, and I'm happy. I'm happy to see Nadine yell at Ed. I don't care if the episode's about someone who forgot to pay for the pie or whatever. I love the characters, and I would love to spend time there. And I think half the fans quit watching because it wasn't Twin Peaks. And the other half that stayed till the end probably pissed off by the way it ends. I mean, Twin Peaks was almost ignored completely throughout the whole thing, to a degree, you could say. If you're a fan, the way I am about the characters, it can offend if you don't pay enough attention to them. Thankfully, I love David Lynch, so I was able to grasp that this is a totally different beast, and I loved it from beginning to end. Part 18 just seems like a prologue to another story.
Yeah.
So, I said Coop was going to say, what is your name?
To Laura or Cheryl Lee, is what she said.
But I said Coop would say it, and Coop said it.
But he said, what's your name to her?
Right.
Not what is your name.
Well, I was pretty close. I did say it would be a Cheryl Lee character, and it almost was.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. I also picked black and white for the Rancho Rosa colors for that episode, and that was the right color.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
But, no, I don't know if anyone picked what would be the last scene. Laura screaming. That would have been almost offensive if you would have guessed that last week. The last thing we're going to see is Laura screaming.
Tell you the truth, I didn't hear Sarah say Laura before she screamed. So my initial watch was, what time is it, or what year is it, and then her just screaming. And yeah, I'm so glad I didn't get on YouTube at that point, because I was a lot more hostile about this episode until I rewatched it immediately after we closed caption on, and it says faintly Laura, and I was able to hear it that time, and it really made it a lot better.
I've watched both hours 4 times now.
Yeah, it came on 4 times that night.
I watched it 3 times Sunday night, and I watched it 1 other time today to take notes, like I did all the other ones. So that's it. No more Twin Peaks for right now.
We're going to do thoughts we thought you didn't think of.
This week we're going to do that. Next week we're probably going to do one summarizing the whole thing and maybe our favorite quotes from it, our favorite scenes, stuff like that. We're going to keep talking about Twin Peaks: The Return. There's no doubt about it. But subscribe to Rosenfield 10, because if you like Twin Peaks, you might like the other stuff we're going to do too.
Yeah, we're doing an award show, a Lynch award show, just Lynch movies,
and our own fucked up shit awards.
They're gonna compete for the title of Oscar or a related.
We're gonna take back the Oscars from the Academy Awards.
That's right.
With every year, we're gonna pick a year that we've seen at least 250 movies in,
which is every year,
which is pretty much every year, and we're gonna make very educated guesses on what should have won.
That's right.
And what should have been nominated, not the crap that they dished up.
How do you not nominate Michael J. Fox for Back to the Future?
Yeah,
those type of things.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Bruce Campbell, are you kidding me? Yeah, that's why we call it the Fucked Up Shit Awards. Good shit.
The way it should be. So yeah, subscribe to our channel so you can get stuff like that. And we'll talk about other shows too. Anything that's cool or interesting. The only one I've got in my sights right now for certain is Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Definitely.
But we could do all kinds of stuff.
Could be doing American Horror Story.
You keep saying that, and I'm not all keen on American Horror Story. It's alright. It's alright.
Okay.
I might want to do one on Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, they're making a second season?
I believe so.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of shows out there I like, but I don't know if I want to do weekly shows breaking everything down. And stuff on Netflix, we'd have to break any review down, even though we've seen the whole thing. It would have to be a really quick overall view of something, but we'll come up with something. Subscribe to the channel so you can see what our crazy asses are going to come up with next.
Woohoo!
And tune in later on this week for thoughts we thought you didn't think of.
It's going to be a good one. All this stuff I just looked at, I can't say anything. It's meant for that show.
Featuring part 17 and part 18.
Tell you exactly where they need to go with the next Twin Peaks installment. Thoughts we thought you didn't think of.
And thank you so much. I hit 100 subscribers.
Kelly Parks, the 100th subscriber. I told her
Thanks,
she
Kelly.
won an oven mitt.
We're going to give you a free oven mitt. And 100 subscribers on the day that Twin Peaks ended. The returns, final episode. But thanks for all you guys who have subscribed. And like I said, stay in tune. We'll do more stuff. And this has been Twin Peaks, Twin Perspective. I'm Joe.
James.
And we'll see you in the trees. Bye.